Welcome to Cultural Lens. Today, we're exploring common misconceptions about Vietnam beliefs that often shape how people view this nation and its culture.
Hello, I'm Karen, and as someone from Vietnam, I've encountered many of these misconceptions firsthand. Today, we'll clarify some of the most pervasive myths.
Through this discussion, we aim to provide accurate insights into Vietnam's culture, traditions, and realities. Let's begin. Is it true that Vietnam is still defined primarily by the war that ended almost 50 years ago?
This is perhaps the biggest misconception. While the war, which we call the American War in Vietnam, was significant, Vietnam has transformed dramatically since 1975. Most Vietnamese today were born after the war and are focused on education, economic growth, and the future rather than past conflicts.
So daily life doesn't revolve around war memorials and historical trauma?
Not at all. Our median age is about 32, and young Vietnamese are concerned with the same things as young people elsewhere: education, career opportunities, technology, and social connections. Vietnam has one of Asia's fastest growing economies, with vibrant cities and a booming tech sector.
What about Vietnamese food? Is pho truly the national dish that represents all Vietnamese cuisine?
That's like saying pizza represents all Italian food. Vietnamese cuisine is incredibly diverse and regional. Northern cuisine tends to use less spice with subtle flavors. Central Vietnam features more complex, spicy dishes from royal traditions, and southern cuisine incorporates more herbs and sweeter flavors. Beyond pho beef noodle soup, there are bún cha grilled pork with rice noodles, bánh mì, Vietnamese sandwiches, gỏi cuốn, fresh spring rolls, and hundreds of other regional specialties.
I've heard Vietnam is a communist country. Does that mean people lack freedoms and live under strict government control?
Vietnam is governed by the Communist Party, but since implementing Doi Moi renovation market reforms in the late 1980s, we've developed what we call a socialist-oriented market economy. Private businesses thrive, international companies invest heavily in Vietnam, and people have considerable economic freedom. According to the World Bank, Vietnam has lifted over 40 million people out of poverty since the 1990s.
One listener asked, why do people assume Vietnam is primarily rural with rice fields and water buffalo when visiting?
This image comes from travel photography that often romanticizes rural landscapes. While those scenes exist in northern mountain regions like Sapa and the countryside, Vietnam has urbanized rapidly. About 40% of Vietnamese now live in urban areas. Ho Chi Minh City has over 9 million people with skyscrapers and modern infrastructure. Vietnam's urban centers contributed 70% of our GDP growth in recent years.
That aligns with how economic development has shifted many agricultural societies toward urbanization globally.
Exactly. While agriculture remains important, services and manufacturing now account for a larger share of GDP. Vietnam is a major exporter of electronics, textiles, and furniture, not just rice and coffee.
Another question, is it true that Vietnam is culturally homogeneous with one dominant lifestyle?
Far from it. Vietnam has 54 different ethnic groups with distinct cultures, languages, and traditions. The King people make up about 85% of the population, but diversity within the country is remarkable. The Hmong, Thai, Muong, and other groups each have unique customs, clothing, and beliefs. Furthermore, regional differences are significant. Life in Hanoi differs considerably from Ho Chi Minh City or rural areas.
That's similar to how many nations have greater cultural complexity than outsiders typically recognize. How can individuals avoid perpetuating these misconceptions when learning about Vietnam?
First, engage with diverse Vietnamese voices, not just war veterans or tourism sources. Vietnam's literary scene is thriving, with authors like Viet Thanh Nguyen and Ocean Vuong providing nuanced perspectives on our culture. Films by Vietnamese directors like Tran Anh Hong offer authentic cultural insights. Second, recognize Vietnam's modernity alongside its traditions. The Vietnam of 2025 is technologically advanced with one of the highest smartphone adoption rates in Southeast Asia. Finally, understand Vietnam's position in the global context. We are deeply integrated into international trade networks and regional organizations like ASEAN. Studies from the Brookings Institution show Vietnam's increasing importance in global supply chains.
Those are excellent strategies for developing a more accurate understanding. I would add that examining one's own cultural lens is crucial, as Western media often filters Vietnam through narrow historical frameworks. Today, we discussed how misconceptions about Vietnam arise and explored ways to approach cultural understanding with greater accuracy and respect. We've seen how Vietnam's rapid development, cultural diversity, and complex political economic system defy simple categorization. We invite you to reflect on your own perceptions of Vietnam and share your thoughts or questions in the comments below. In our next episode, we'll examine the cultural nuances of Morocco. Join us then.